Hi, it's Lee and welcome to the Tesla Economist. Quite a few people talk about the affordable Tesla not being a compact, but indeed being a Model 3. Sure, there'll more than likely be a compact Tesla later down the road, but it might not be the affordable Tesla that everyone is hoping for soon. So what if Tesla do make an affordable Tesla soon, and they do it with a lower cost Model 3? What would that do for demand, and how will it affect the company? Let's first be honest with the situation here. I'm still talking about a Model 3 with similar specifications to the current. I am not talking about Tesla achieving this now, but more likely in a few years. A lot of people are thinking that Tesla will launch an affordable car for the masses sometime, perhaps around mid-2024. Other people also entertain the idea that there will be a lower cost Model 3. Now, when the Model 3 was initially unveiled, it did have a $35,000 price tag attached to it, and that was intended for technology and processes back then, namely using 2170 non-structural battery packs. This was 6 years ago now. Okay, we're dealing with some inflation since then, but the advances we've seen in electric cars and batteries has done more than make up for any inflation. So, is there a possibility that the Tesla will transform the Model 3 into the affordable Tesla? Right now, they don't make many Model 3s, relative to the number of Model Ys they are intending to sell. The real question is, are Tesla more forward-looking? Have they discovered much better manufacturing techniques since the Model 3, and now it'd be better to redesign an affordable vehicle from a blank canvas, rather than retrofitting the Model 3 with much higher margin and easier, faster manufacturing techniques? Well, possibly. Or perhaps Tesla would rather concentrate on ramping up the potential robotaxi rather than focusing on ramping up older models. Again, another possibility. But what if Tesla want to fill out supply to all the demand outstanding for the Model 3? Well, that's the assumption this video will be based on. The affordable Tesla was somewhat considered to be $25,000 due to Battery Day. Of course, this would have just been the starting price for a basic version, and now everyone is adjusting this price to $30,000 for inflation. But I think that with what we know now, and have discovered about Teslas since Battery Day, even let alone the Model 3 reveal, that $35,000 is still going to be a low enough price to meet the label of an affordable Tesla. So if we look at 35% margin on a $35,000 Tesla, then we're at $23,000 cost to produce the vehicle. That does feel like a low cost to produce, but Tesla was selling a $35,000 Model 3 years ago, which did seem to have a positive gross margin, as in they were building it for under $35,000. This was with much higher cost 2170 cells and older manufacturing techniques in an old factory that was barely in volume production. In this scenario, we'd be assuming a new state-of-the-art manufacturing facility with front and rear castings, a 4680 structural battery pack, or maybe even LFP equivalent structural battery pack, possibly with a new chemistry without nickel, thus reducing costs further. Then all the other advances we might see over the next 2 years, like Tesla now experimenting without using ultrasonic sensors anymore, like they removed radar. Absolutely insane. I think that when you factor in all of this and consider how much economies of scale a vehicle in this with this much supply and demand would have, then I think that margin is a possibility at that price point, or at least close. And that doesn't even include any extras like the very profitable FSD. Now, we can only imagine how much demand there would be for such a vehicle. A car that, according to Tesla, saves you $1,100 a year on gas, and when Tesla insurance is rolled out, possibly another $400 a year again. Then without all the other additional costs and hassles of owning an ICE vehicle. But even at $1,500 a year saving, that would be 4% return on investment from buying a $35,000 car. That's a better return than you can have your money in the bank. Except this is the saving you get on an equivalent ICE car, so that would also imply that you had an ICE car. But what if the ICE car was perhaps 5 years old and worth about $20,000 if you sold it? However, if we're going to go down that path of comparing a 5-year-old car to a brand new Tesla, then we also need to factor in that this car would require more servicing and engine maintenance, and the warranty would have expired. So let's add on an additional $500 a year of maintenance. And then we can also subtract the cost of this used car from the new Tesla. Suddenly, the difference changes to a 13% return on investment, which is a far more real comparison. In other words, anyone with a $20,000 ICE vehicle could easily justify the minimal $15,000 upgrade to a brand new Tesla if they were available for $35,000. Look, I just don't know how crazy demand really would be for a Tesla at this price. It's often thought of as if there is a capacity of orders or so in the US alone, as the new car market is only about 15 million sales a year, as it is finite at that. But it's not. This is competing with used cars at this price point, but it may not even stop there. It might not even just be attracting people who are looking to replace their car because it's time to upgrade. It might be coveted so much by people who just suddenly want a Tesla because it is at this low price point. Anyway, as we are saying, this could be at around 2024 if Tesla's supply for Model Y has finally met demand at the right market clearing price. So demand for a $35,000 Model 3 could be absolutely crazy. Surely millions in the US alone. But like we said, 2024, at best at this stage, we may have Texas expanded and a Model 3 factory there. The new factory soon to be announced could have a Model 3 factory there too, and have ramped by 2024. Then possibly another new factory on top of that. But even then, it would have still struggled to ramp to any decent stage. So what are we saying here? Well, at best, I would guess that maximum capacity of Model 3 by 2024 in the US, perhaps in Q4, might be 70,000 from Fremont, then 250,000 from Texas, 250,000 from this new factory, and then perhaps 100,000 from another new factory, taking the total to 670,000 for a quarter, or a run rate of around 2.5 million Model 3s for the US. But would demand in the US for a $35,000 Tesla be higher than that? I would guess so, because it doesn't end there, does it? Because it's not a $35,000 Tesla. It's actually a $27,500 Tesla when you remove the ridiculous tax credits, which changes everything again. And I would say that there is truly a demand for probably 5 million of those a year just in the US. It becomes absolutely ridiculously cheap by that stage. And if we compare it now to a 10-year-old used car that's worth just $10,000, this will be less fuel efficient, it will require more maintenance due to being older. Then looking at our table again, it's a 14% return on investment upgrading from a $10,000 used car to a brand new $35,000 Tesla. So when you factor in the tax credit, it gets a bit silly. Tesla will obviously be supply constrained very quickly again. Therefore, I don't even think Tesla need to offer an affordable car for less than $40,000 in the US anytime before at least 2025. If Tesla chose to expand Model 3 production using new lower cost, faster production techniques, then even at $40,000, they will really struggle to make close to enough vehicles. And perhaps Tesla could only get the cost down to $25,000 and not $23,000. But if the price is $40,000, then we're at 37.5% margin. And again, that's without anyone ordering FSD or even insurance or any other upgrades. Tesla can also totally self-fund themselves through all this expansion if they so chose. However, the additional cost of building a Model Y relative to this Model 3 is not that much more. Of course, the Model Y does need a larger battery in order to get the same amount of range, but that difference is also diminishing with 4680s and structural pack. Consumers are, however, willing to pay more for a Model Y over a Model 3, by which I mean more than the additional cost of production between the two. For example, if a Model Y costs $4,000 extra to build, the market still may be willing to pay $8,000 more for one over a Model 3. In other words, from a profit standpoint, it makes sense to keep on making these Model Ys in the meantime until that demand has finally saturated and that difference in profit between the two has diminished. I guess the real point that this brings back to investors is that there's still just so much more demand that Tesla can find for their products by doing all sorts of clever new things with processes that they've already proven, or at least once the 4680s are solved. Although, like I said, Tesla may be forward-looking and want to make a different model for the market, looking for an affordable Tesla that could cost even less to build. That tax credit just makes selling in the US a goldmine. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.